The rain drizzled lightly over Konoha, a soft patter against the windows of the Hokage's office. Naruto Uzumaki stood silently, gazing out at the village he had worked so hard to protect. It had been months since the end of the Fourth Great Ninja War, yet the scars of battle lingered. The empty seats at Ichiraku's, the quiet nights that used to buzz with laughter, and the faces of those he'd lost weighed heavily on him. "Hey, Naruto, you okay?" Sakura's voice broke his train of thought. She had come to drop off some mission reports, but her concern for him was evident. Naruto forced a grin, scratching the back of his head. "Yeah, just thinking about stuff. Don't worry about me." Sakura frowned but didn't press further. She had seen this look in him before, the burden of being Hokage, a leader who carried the world's pain on his shoulders. After a brief exchange, she left, leaving Naruto alone in the dimly lit office. That night, unable to sleep, Naruto wandered through the halls of the Hokage archives. As Hokage, he now had access to every scroll, every secret Konoha had ever guarded. He wasn't entirely sure why he had come here, but something drew him deeper into the labyrinthine corridors. His eyes caught a faint glow emanating from a shelf tucked away in the farthest corner of the room. A single scroll, tied with a dark red ribbon, pulsed with an eerie light. The air felt heavier around it, and the room seemed to hum with ancient energy. Curious, Naruto untied the ribbon and unrolled the scroll. His heart skipped a beat as he read the title, Chrono Reversion, a forbidden jutsu of temporal manipulation. The scroll detailed a technique so dangerous it had been sealed away for centuries. The jutsu allowed its user to transfer their consciousness back in time to their younger self, retaining all their memories and abilities. However, it came with severe warnings. Every alteration to the timeline would have unpredictable consequences. Each use of the jutsu weakened the user's lifespan. Once cast, the return to the present was impossible. Naruto's hands trembled. The possibilities raced through his mind. What if he could save Neji? What if Jiraiya never died? What if he could stop the Uchiha massacre? His breath quickened as the memories of loss and regret overwhelmed him. This could change everything, he whispered. But the cost, the risk. Could he truly rewrite the past without destroying the future? Naruto spent the next week poring over the scroll, its instructions etched into his mind. He told no one, not even Sasuke or Hinata. The temptation gnawed at him every day. Finally, on a quiet night under a crescent moon, he made his decision. Standing atop the Hokage monument, Naruto performed the hand signs with precision. The air around him crackled with energy, and the stars above seemed to blur. A faint voice whispered in his mind, warning him to stop, but he ignored it. "Here goes nothing," Naruto said, closing his eyes. The moment he completed the jutsu, a blinding light engulfed him. His consciousness was pulled through a swirling void of memories and emotions. He felt himself falling, tumbling through fragments of his own life. His first bowl of ramen, the pain of loneliness, the bond with Team 7, the triumphs, and the heartbreaks. When the light faded, Naruto found himself lying on the hard wooden floor of a small apartment. His eyes snapped open, and he stared at the ceiling. Slowly, he sat up, his heart pounding. He was back. Naruto glanced at his hands, smaller and unscarred. A cracked mirror on the wall confirmed it. He was a child again, no older than 12, wearing his orange jumpsuit. The faint noise of Iruka calling students to the academy floated in through the open window. A grin broke across his face, equal parts excitement and disbelief. "This time, I'll make things right." Naruto stood in his tiny apartment, a mix of nostalgia and determination coursing through him. He had dreamt of this moment so many times. A chance to fix the past, to rewrite history in a way that spared everyone the pain they endured. But now that he was here, the reality of it all hit him like a punch from Tsunade. "All right," he muttered, clenching his fists. "First step, don't act like an idiot. Second step, don't mess this up." He quickly dressed in his old orange jumpsuit, the sight of which made him cringe. Ugh, no wonder people didn't take me seriously. He resolved to swap it out as soon as possible. For now, though, he had bigger priorities. The academy wasn't far, and as Naruto made his way there, Memories of his younger self's antics flooded his mind. The pranks, the shouting, the desperate attempts to get noticed. Not this time. This time, he would approach things differently. As he entered the classroom, familiar faces greeted him. Sakura sat near the front, her pink hair shining in the morning light. Sasuke leaned against the wall, brooding as always. Shikamaru yawned lazily, and Choji munched on a bag of chips. Everything felt so normal yet surreal. Irika entered, his expression stern but kind. "All right, everyone, settle down." Naruto took his seat and tried to suppress the grin threatening to break out. Irika's voice was the same, warm and steady. It brought a sense of comfort he hadn't realized he missed so much. "Naruto Uzumaki," Irika called out. Late as usual. The class snickered, but Naruto just shrugged. "Sorry, Irika-sensei. Won't happen again." Irika raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the lack of a loud protest or excuse. "Well, good. Let's hope you mean that." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Naruto paid close attention to the lessons, jotting down notes he didn't need. He already knew most of this stuff, but it was important to keep up appearances. When the final bell rang, Naruto lingered as the other students filed out. He had one goal in mind: Sasuke. "Hey, team," Naruto called, catching Sasuke just before he could leave. Sasuke turned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want, doe?" Naruto smirked. "Just wanted to say hi. And I wanted to let you know I'm gonna beat you one day." Sasuke scoffed. "Achin." "As if." Naruto chuckled. He hadn't expected much else, but the interaction left him feeling oddly satisfied. Sasuke was alive, whole, and still here. That was all that mattered. Later that evening, Naruto sat cross-legged on his bed, reviewing his mental list of priorities. There were so many things he wanted to change, but he had to be strategic. Going after the biggest threats first wasn't an option. Not yet. "Okay," he muttered. "The Chunin exams are coming up soon. Orochimaru's gonna make his move. If I can stop him early, maybe I can save the third Hokage." The thought filled him with hope and dread in equal measure. Stopping Orochimaru wouldn't be easy, but Naruto wasn't the same clueless kid anymore. He had the power of experience, and more importantly, he had Kurama. Naruto closed his eyes and reached out to the fox's presence. The familiar red glow of the demon's chakra enveloped him, and he found himself standing in the mental plane of the seal. Kurama stared down at him, his massive frame illuminated by the eerie glow of the cage. "What do you want, brat?" Naruto grinned. "I bet you didn't expect to see me like this, huh?" Kurama tilted his head, his crimson eyes narrowing. "You're different. What have you done?" "Long story," Naruto replied. "But here's the deal. We're gonna work together. No more tricks, no more fighting. If we don't stop Orochimaru, bad things are gonna happen." Kurama let out a low growl. "And why should I care about your petty human squabbles?" "Because if Orochimaru wins, you lose too," Naruto said firmly. "He doesn't care about you, Kurama. He'll just use you as a tool." The fox's eyes glimmered with interest. "You're bold, brat. Fine, I'll play along for now. But don't think this makes us friends." Naruto smirked. "That's good enough for me." The next day, Naruto began his preparations. He visited the training grounds early, pushing his body harder than ever. With Kurama's chakra enhancing him, his progress was astounding. Techniques that once took him weeks to master came to him in hours. Shadow clones worked tirelessly alongside him, replicating every move, every jutsu. By the time the sun set, Naruto was exhausted but satisfied. He had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was in control. As he stared up at the stars that night, Naruto made a silent promise. He would save his friends, protect his village, and rewrite the story of their world. This time, he wouldn't let anyone down. The days leading up to the Chunin exams were a whirlwind of preparation for Naruto. Balancing training, gathering intel, and maintaining the appearance of his younger self was a challenge, but it also felt exhilarating. He was playing a high-stakes game where the slightest misstep could derail everything he aimed to achieve. Naruto spent time observing the other teams, paying special attention to Gaara. The memory of the Sand Shinobi's uncontrollable rage and Shikaka's devastating power was etched deeply in his mind. This time, he intended to stop Gaara's spiral into chaos. But Naruto also knew he couldn't do it alone. One morning at Training Ground 7, Naruto called a meeting with his team, Sakura, Kakashi, and Sasuke. Sakura frowned as she crossed her arms. "What's with the serious tone, Naruto? You're not usually like this." Naruto shrugged. "Just thinking ahead, you know? The Chunin exams are gonna be tough. We need to be ready." Kakashi raised an eyebrow, lowering his book slightly. "You're unusually focused, Naruto. Care to share your plan?" Naruto hesitated for a moment. He had to tread carefully to avoid raising too many suspicions. "I just think we should train harder as a team. We've got some strong competitors this year, and we can't slack off." Sasuke smirked. "You're talking like you've already sized up the competition. Who are you worried about?" Naruto's eyes flickered toward Sasuke, his tone turning serious. "There's a group from the Sand Village. Keep an eye on them, especially their redhead. Something about him gives me a bad feeling." Kakashi nodded slightly, his one visible eye narrowing. "Noted. Anything else?" Naruto hesitated, then decided to test the waters. "If anything unexpected happens during the exams, we need to stick together. Trust me on this." The team exchanged puzzled glances, but Kakashi simply said, "All right, Naruto. Let's see how serious you are. Training starts now." The Chunin exams, first stage. The written test was as stressful as Naruto remembered, but this time, he kept his cool. With the advantage of hindsight, he focused on maintaining his role rather than panicking like he had in his original timeline. He relied on his observation skills and, of course, his trusty shadow clones to cheat without getting caught. When Ibiki revealed the true purpose of the test, to test their resolve, Naruto stood tall, his declaration of never giving up echoing through the room. For a brief moment, he caught a flicker of pride in Sakura's eyes and a faint smirk on Sasuke's lips. The Forest of Death. The second stage of the exam was where the real danger began. Naruto remembered every trap, ambush, and betrayal that lay hidden within the dense, ominous forest. Orochimaru's attack on Sasuke was inevitable, but Naruto planned to confront him head-on this time. Their team's first challenge came in the form of a Rain Village team ambushing them near a riverbank. Naruto took charge, directing Sakura to guard the scroll while he and Sasuke handled the attackers. Sasuke's sharingan activated, and his movements were sharp and precise, but Naruto matched his intensity. Using shadow clones and enhanced strength from Kurama's chakra, Naruto quickly overwhelmed their opponents. As the last enemy fell unconscious, Sasuke glared at Naruto. "You've improved." Naruto grinned, scratching the back of his head. "Told you I've been training." Sakura approached, looking impressed but cautious. "We got lucky. We need to stay alert." Naruto nodded. "Luck's got nothing to do with it, Sakura. We're just getting started." The Orochimaru encounter. When Orochimaru finally appeared, his sinister aura sent chills down the team's spines. Sasuke froze, paralyzed by the overwhelming killing intent, but Naruto stepped forward without hesitation. Orochimaru's snake-like eyes narrowed in amusement. "Ah, Naruto Uzumaki. I didn't expect such boldness from you." Naruto smirked, his blue eyes gleaming with determination. "I'm full of surprises." Without waiting for a response, Naruto charged, summoning a barrage of shadow clones to distract Orochimaru. The Sannin easily dispatched the clones, but Naruto used the opportunity to close the gap and deliver a Rasengan to Orochimaru's midsection. The attack sent Orochimaru flying, but he quickly recovered, his smile unbroken. "Impressive. You've grown stronger than I anticipated. But you're still far too weak to stop me." As Orochimaru summoned massive snakes to attack, Naruto's instinct screamed at him to protect his team. He activated more of Kurama's chakra, his aura flaring dangerously. "You won't lay a finger on my friends," Naruto shouted, unleashing a powerful wave of chakra that momentarily forced Orochimaru back. Sasuke snapped out of his trance, his sharingan spinning wildly. Together, he and Naruto launched a coordinated assault, pushing Orochimaru to retreat temporarily. "Interesting," Orochimaru said, his tone dripping with malice. "I'll see you again soon, Sasuke." As the snake Sannin disappeared into the forest, Naruto let out a sigh of relief. The battle had been a small victory, but the war was far from over. Back at the tower, when the team finally reached the tower, they were battered but alive. Sakura tended to their injuries, while Sasuke sat in brooding silence. Naruto leaned against the wall, his mind racing. He had delayed Orochimaru's plans for now, but the looming threat of the curse mark still hung over Sasuke. One step at a time, Naruto muttered to himself, "I'll protect them no matter what." The team stood in the quiet of the tower, their exhaustion evident in the slow movements of their bodies and the silence that settled over them. Sakura was carefully tending to Sasuke's arm, which bore shallow cuts from their battle. Naruto watched them, his mind spinning with the weight of what had just transpired and what was yet to come. Orochimaru's words echoed in his head. Sasuke was still in danger, and Naruto knew it was only a matter of time before the snake Sannin made his next move. Sasuke broke the silence. That power. Who was he? And why was he after me? His voice carried a mixture of frustration and fear, emotions he rarely let slip. Naruto crossed his arms, leaning back against the cold wall. "That guy's bad news, Sasuke. All you need to know is that he's dangerous, and we can't let our guard down." He avoided revealing too much. Explaining Orochimaru's true intentions would raise too many questions he couldn't answer without revealing his secret. Sakura chimed in, her voice steady despite her shaken demeanor. "Whatever his reasons, we're not going to let him win. Right, Naruto?" Naruto nodded, giving her a reassuring grin. "That's the plan, Sakura. We stick together and we've got this." The doors to the next phase opened, and the team stepped through. The anticipation in the air was almost tangible, with teams from various villages gathered in the large hall. Naruto scanned the room, his eyes lingering on Gaara, who stood with his siblings in a corner. The sand shinobi's cold, unblinking stare sent a chill down Naruto's spine. He remembered the devastation Gaara had caused during the original timeline and vowed to prevent it this time. The sound of a loud, booming voice interrupted Naruto's thoughts. Proctor Hate stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "Congratulations to those who have made it this far. The preliminaries for the Chunin exams will now begin." The battles began, one after another, each match pushing the participants to their limits. Naruto watched closely, analyzing his potential opponents. When Sasuke's name was called, Naruto tensed. He knew what was coming. Sasuke stepped into the arena, his expression a mask of determination. His opponent was a member of the Sound Village, the same one who had been a pawn in Orochimaru's plans. The fight was intense, with Sasuke displaying his impressive taijutsu skills and strategic thinking. However, it wasn't long before the curse mark began to stir. Naruto clenched his fists as he watched the dark energy creep up Sasuke's neck. The audience murmured in confusion, and Naruto's heart raced. He couldn't intervene, but he couldn't let Sasuke lose control either. Sasuke managed to suppress the mark's influence, defeating his opponent with a well-timed combination. As he walked back to their team's side, his steps faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. "Good job, Sasuke. Take it easy for now." Sasuke glanced at Naruto, his expression unreadable, and nodded. Naruto's turn came soon after. His opponent, Kiba, smirked confidently as they faced off. "Don't think I'm the same as last time, Naruto. You're going down." Naruto chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. "We'll see about that, Kiba." The fight was fast-paced and chaotic, with Kiba and Akamaru coordinating their attacks to overwhelm Naruto. But Naruto's reflexes and tactics had improved significantly. With a clever use of shadow clones and misdirection, he managed to gain the upper hand. The battle ended with Naruto landing a decisive Rasengan, sending Kiba sprawling to the ground. As the crowd erupted in cheers, Naruto helped Kiba to his feet. "Good fight, Kiba. You've gotten stronger." Kiba grinned despite his defeat. "You're not so bad yourself, Naruto." Returning to his team, Naruto felt a mix of relief and determination. The battles ahead would only get tougher, but he was ready to face them. He had to be. There was too much at stake. As the preliminaries continued, the tension in the room only grew. One by one, the matches whittled down the competitors, leaving only the strongest, or luckiest, still standing. Naruto kept a close eye on every battle, his mind racing with strategies and contingency plans. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting to protect his friends and the timeline he was desperately trying to safeguard. When Sakura's name was called, Naruto and Sasuke exchanged a brief glance. "You've got this, Sakura," Naruto said, his voice full of encouragement. Sasuke nodded in agreement, his stoic demeanor softening just slightly. Sakura faced off against Ino, her childhood rival. The air between them was thick with history and unresolved emotions. The fight started with a clash of kunai and a battle of wills. Naruto could see how much Sakura had grown. Her punches were sharper, her movements more calculated. She wasn't the same hesitant girl he remembered from their first Chunin exams. But Ino wasn't one to back down either. She used her mind transfer jutsu to try and catch Sakura off guard. For a moment, it seemed like Sakura was trapped, but she broke free through sheer willpower, leaving everyone, including Ino, stunned. When the match ended with Sakura narrowly claiming victory, Naruto and Sasuke greeted her with proud smiles. "Told you, Sakura. You're stronger than you think," Naruto said, grinning. "Thanks," she replied, her cheeks flushing as she tried to catch her breath. "But I still have a lot to learn." As the matches continued, Naruto's focus sharpened. His heart sank slightly when Rock Lee's name was called, pitting him against Gaara. This was one of the moments Naruto had dreaded. He clenched his fists as Lee stepped into the arena, his determination radiating through the room. The fight was brutal and awe-inspiring. Lee's speed and taijutsu were on full display as he unleashed a barrage of attacks on Gaara. For a brief moment, it seemed like Lee might actually overcome the Sand Shinobi's impenetrable defense. But then, Gaara's sand began to move with lethal precision, countering Lee's every move. Naruto watched in agony as Gaara's sand crushed Lee's leg and arm, leaving the boy broken on the ground. The medics rushed in, and Naruto's resolve hardened. He couldn't let Gaara become the monster he remembered. He vowed to confront him, not just in the arena but as a person. Finally, the preliminaries ended, and the remaining competitors were given a month to prepare for the finals. As the crowd dispersed, Naruto turned to his team. "We've got a lot of work to do. Let's make this month count." Sasuke, still grappling with the curse mark's influence, nodded silently. Sakura, her confidence growing, smiled faintly. Naruto felt the weight of their trust and his own responsibilities. He wasn't just a participant in these exams. He was a guardian of a future that wasn't supposed to exist. That night, Naruto sat on the roof of the inn where they were staying, gazing at the moon. He thought about the battles ahead, the people he needed to protect, and the enemies he had to face. His mind drifted to Itachi. Somewhere out there, his brother's shadow loomed over Sasuke's future. "I won't let it happen," Naruto whispered to himself. "Not this time." The wind carried his words into the night, a silent promise to the world he was determined to save. The following day, the village buzzed with the aftermath of the preliminaries. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura regrouped early, their training schedules packed with plans to make the most of the month ahead. Kakashi had already informed Sasuke that he'd personally oversee his training, leaving Naruto to figure out his path forward. Naruto decided to seek out Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, whom he knew held the key to unlocking greater potential within him. It wasn't just about strength. It was about control, about preparing himself for the trials that lay ahead, including mastering the Nine-Tails power. When Naruto found Jiraiya lounging by a hot spring, he wasted no time. "Ero Sennin, I need you to train me. I'm going to win the finals and protect everyone." Jiraiya smirked, raising an eyebrow. "You've got spunk, kid, but are you ready to put in the work? No shortcuts, no whining." Naruto nodded fiercely. "I'll do whatever it takes." Jiraiya didn't waste time. The training began with chakra control exercises, pushing Naruto to refine his precision. They moved on to advanced techniques, including summoning. Naruto's attempts to summon a toad initially resulted in comically small and unimpressive creatures, but he refused to give up. Each failure only fueled his determination. Meanwhile, Sasuke trained under Kakashi, focusing on speed, strategy, and the chidori, a technique designed to pierce through even the toughest defenses. Sasuke's ambition burned brighter than ever, driven by his rivalry with Naruto and the looming presence of his brother, Itachi. Sakura, on the other hand, took it upon herself to strengthen her weaknesses. She sought guidance from the village's medical nin and worked tirelessly to improve her skills. Though her path was different from her teammates, she was determined to prove her worth. As the weeks passed, Naruto began to notice subtle changes in himself. His stamina improved, his reflexes sharpened, and his control over the Nine-Tails chakra became more stable. Jiraiya pushed him further, introducing him to more complex techniques and drilling him on the fundamentals. But Naruto's training wasn't just physical. Jiraiya often shared stories about his own experiences, about the challenges of being a shinobi and the importance of balance. Power isn't everything, Jiraiya told him one evening. It's how you use it, who you protect with it, that matters. Naruto absorbed those lessons, his understanding of what it meant to be a shinobi deepening. He wasn't just training for the finals. He was training to become someone who could protect his friends, his village, and the future he believed in. As the finals drew closer, the village grew more lively. The anticipation was palpable, with rumors swirling about the competitors and their potential. Naruto felt the weight of those expectations, but he didn't let it deter him. If anything, it fueled him further. Finally, the day arrived. Naruto stood at the entrance to the arena, his heart pounding in his chest. He glanced at Sasuke and Sakura, their faces set with determination. They had all come so far, and now it was time to show the world what they were capable of. Naruto took a deep breath and stepped into the arena, the roar of the crowd washing over him. The finals had begun, and with them, the next chapter of his journey. The energy in the arena was electric as the first match was called. Naruto stood on the sidelines, his nerves battling with the excitement coursing through him. This was his chance to prove himself, not just to the village, but to everyone who ever doubted him. As the first match commenced, Naruto watched closely, studying the techniques and strategies of the other competitors. The battles were intense, each fighter showcasing the fruits of their training. Sasuke's match was a spectacle, his speed and mastery of the chidori leaving the crowd in awe. Even Naruto couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration for his rival. But Naruto's time to shine came soon enough. His name was called, and he stepped into the arena, facing Neji Hyuga. The atmosphere grew heavy, the crowd murmuring in anticipation of the clash. Naruto's fists clenched as he locked eyes with Neji. "I'm not gonna let you look down on me anymore," he declared, his voice firm. Neji smirked, his tone calm and condescending. "Fate has already decided the outcome. You can't change what's meant to be." Naruto's temper flared, but he took a deep breath, remembering Jiraiya's lessons. "We'll see about that." The proctor signaled for the match to begin, and Neji immediately took the offensive. His strikes were precise, aimed at shutting down Naruto's chakra points. But Naruto's training had paid off. His reflexes were sharper, his movements unpredictable. He used his clones to create chaos, forcing Neji to stay on his toes. Neji's byakugan gave him an edge, allowing him to see through Naruto's tricks. But Naruto didn't let that deter him. He kept pushing, using every ounce of his creativity and determination to stay in the fight. As the battle raged on, Neji managed to land a critical hit, shutting down Naruto's chakra flow. The crowd gasped as Naruto fell to the ground, seemingly defeated. Neji stood over him, his expression unreadable. "This is your fate. Accept it." But Naruto wasn't done. Struggling to his feet, he gritted his teeth and drew on the Nine-Tails chakra. A fiery aura enveloped him, and the ground trembled beneath his feet. The crowd fell silent as Naruto's power surged, his determination unshaken. "This is my fate," Naruto said, his voice steady and resolute. "To keep fighting no matter what." With a roar, Naruto launched himself at Neji, his movements a blur. This time, Neji couldn't keep up. Naruto's resolve and sheer willpower overwhelmed him, and with one final strike, Naruto emerged victorious. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Naruto's focus remained on Neji. He extended a hand, his expression earnest. You don't have to be a prisoner to fate. You can change it. Neji hesitated before accepting Naruto's hand, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. As Naruto left the arena, the cheers of the crowd echoed in his ears. But more than that, he felt the weight of his own growth, the understanding that he was becoming someone who could inspire others. And this was just the beginning. The aftermath of Naruto's victory against Neji was a mix of celebration and reflection. As the crowd buzzed with excitement, Naruto walked off the arena floor, his chest heaving and his body aching from the intense battle. Despite his exhaustion, he couldn't wipe the grin off his face. He'd proven himself, not just to the village but to Neji as well. The words he'd spoken, about breaking free from fate, hadn't just been for Neji. They'd been for himself too. Sakura ran to meet him, concern written all over her face. "Naruto, are you okay? That fight was insane." Naruto gave her a thumbs up, though his arm felt like lead. "Of course I'm okay. You know me, Sakura-chan. Nothing can keep me down." Kakashi appeared behind her, his ever-present book tucked into his vest for once. "You did well, Naruto," he said, his voice carrying a rare tone of pride. "You've come a long way." Naruto beamed at the praise, but before he could respond, the next match was called. Shikamaru stepped into the arena, his usual lazy demeanor intact. Naruto flopped onto the bench, ready to cheer his friend on, though his eyelids felt heavy. As the match progressed, Naruto's mind drifted, replaying his fight with Neji. He couldn't shake the memory of the look in Neji's eyes when their match ended, a mix of surprise, confusion, and maybe, just maybe, hope. Later that evening, the remaining matches were postponed due to the late hour. The competitors were given time to rest and recover, and Naruto found himself wandering through the village. The streets were quiet, a stark contrast to the earlier chaos of the tournament. He liked it this way. It gave him time to think. He eventually ended up at Ichiraka Ramen, where Tucci greeted him with a wide smile. "Naruto, I saw your fight today. You were amazing." Ayam set a steaming bowl of miso ramen in front of him. "On the house," she said with a wink. Naruto's stomach growled loudly, and he didn't need any more encouragement. As he dug in, the warmth of the broth and the familiar flavors helped him relax. But even as he ate, his mind remained restless. He couldn't stop thinking about the power he'd tapped into during the fight. The Nine-Tails chakra had saved him again, but it was a dangerous power, one he didn't fully understand. "Enjoying your victory feast?" a familiar voice drawled. Naruto turned to see Sasuke leaning against the doorframe, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Sasuke, what are you doing here?" Naruto asked through a mouthful of noodles. Sasuke smirked. "Just making sure you're not slacking off. You might have won today, but don't let it go to your head." Naruto bristled. "What's that supposed to mean? You think you're better than me, huh?" "I don't think," Sasuke said, his smirk widening. "I know." Before Naruto could retort, Tucci cleared his throat loudly. "No fighting in the ramen shop," he warned, though his tone was more amused than serious. Sasuke shrugged and took a seat beside Naruto, ordering a bowl of ramen for himself. The two sat in companionable silence for a while, the rivalry between them temporarily set aside. After finishing their meal, Naruto and Sasuke left the shop and wandered through the village. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silver glow over everything. Despite their constant bickering, there was an unspoken understanding between them. Both were driven by the need to grow stronger, to prove themselves. "Hey, Sasuke," Naruto said suddenly, his voice quieter than usual. "Do you ever feel like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough?" Sasuke glanced at him, his dark eyes unreadable. "All the time," he admitted after a moment. "But that's why we keep pushing. Because if we stop, we'll never catch up to the people we're chasing." Naruto nodded, the weight of Sasuke's words settling over him. For all their differences, they weren't so different after all. The next day brought a new sense of anticipation as the tournament resumed. The crowd was even larger, the energy in the air electric. Naruto watched as the matches unfolded, each one showcasing the incredible talents of the competitors. When Sasuke's name was called, the entire stadium seemed to hold its breath. Sasuke's opponent was a shinobi from the hidden sand, and the battle was fierce from the start. Sasuke's movements were lightning fast, his sharingan a blur of red. Naruto couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy as he watched his rival fight with such precision and confidence. But more than that, he felt inspired. He wanted to reach that level, to stand on equal footing with Sasuke. As Sasuke's match ended in a decisive victory, Naruto's determination burned brighter than ever. He knew he still had a long way to go, but for the first time, he felt like he was truly on the path to becoming Hokage. The crowd erupted into cheers as Sasuke's hand was raised in victory. He stood there, breathing heavily, his sharingan still activated, scanning the crowd as if looking for someone. His gaze locked onto Naruto for a brief moment, and there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Acknowledgement? Challenge? Naruto couldn't tell, but it didn't matter. It only fueled his resolve further. As the day wore on, the remaining matches unfolded, and the tension in the arena grew palpable. Each fight was more intense than the last, showcasing the diverse abilities and strategies of the young shinobi. Naruto watched closely, analyzing the moves of each participant. He knew his next match wouldn't be easy, and he wanted to be prepared. When the final match of the day was announced, Naruto's heart skipped a beat. It was Gaara's turn to fight. The mysterious sand shinobi had been a topic of hushed conversation since the start of the exams. His cold demeanor and overwhelming power had left an impression on everyone, and Naruto couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and curiosity as Gaara stepped into the arena. Gaara's opponent was a leaf shinobi, a skilled fighter with impressive techniques. But from the moment the match began, it was clear that Gaara was on a different level. His sand moved with terrifying speed and precision, creating an impenetrable defense and launching devastating attacks. The fight ended almost as quickly as it began, with Gaara emerging victorious without a scratch. As Gaara walked off the field, his eyes scanned the crowd, eventually settling on Naruto. The intensity of his gaze sent a shiver down Naruto's spine. There was something deeply unsettling about Gaara, something that went beyond his power. Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that their paths would cross soon, and it wouldn't be in a friendly way. That evening, the competitors were gathered for a briefing about the next stage of the tournament. The proctor explained the rules and format, emphasizing the importance of strategy and adaptability. Naruto listened intently, his mind racing with thoughts of potential opponents and tactics. After the meeting, Naruto found himself wandering the training grounds, unable to sleep. The events of the day had left him restless, and he needed to clear his head. As he practiced his moves, focusing on refining his control over the Nine-Tails chakra, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "You're pushing yourself hard, Naruto." He turned to see Kakashi leaning against a tree, his ever-present book nowhere in sight. There was a rare seriousness in his tone that caught Naruto off guard. "I have to, sensei," Naruto said, wiping sweat from his brow. "I can't afford to fall behind. Not when everyone else is so strong." Kakashi studied him for a moment before walking closer. "Strength isn't just about power or techniques. It's about understanding yourself and your purpose. Why do you want to be strong, Naruto?" Naruto paused, the question catching him off guard. He'd always said he wanted to be Hokage, but was that really the only reason? As he thought about it, images of his friends, his village, and the people who had believed in him flashed through his mind. "I want to protect everyone," he said finally. "I want to make sure no one ever feels alone or weak like I did." Kakashi's eye crinkled in what might have been a smile. "Then hold on to that feeling. It's what will drive you forward when things get tough." The next day arrived quickly, and the atmosphere in the arena was more charged than ever. Naruto's match was one of the first, and as he stepped onto the field, he felt the weight of countless eyes on him. His opponent was a skilled shinobi from the hidden cloud, known for his speed and lightning-based jutsu. As the fight began, Naruto focused on staying calm and using the lessons he'd learned. His opponent's speed was incredible, but Naruto's unpredictability and sheer determination kept him in the game. He used clones to create openings, combining them with the Nine-Tails chakra to amplify his attacks. The battle was fierce and evenly matched, with both fighters pushing themselves to their limits. But in the end, it was Naruto's resourcefulness that gave him the edge. With a clever feint and a well-timed Rasengan, he secured his victory, earning cheers from the crowd. As he left the arena, his body aching and his chakra nearly depleted, Naruto couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. He was one step closer to his dream, and nothing was going to stop him. But as he glanced at the schedule for the next matches, his heart sank. His next opponent was Gaara. Naruto stood frozen for a moment as he read the name on the match schedule. Gaara. The very name sent chills down his spine. He had seen Gaara's power firsthand in the earlier match, and the thought of facing him head-on was both terrifying and exhilarating. Gaara's abilities were unlike anything Naruto had encountered, and he had no idea how to counter his opponent's overwhelming sand techniques. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. "I can do this. I have to do this," he muttered under his breath. This was more than just a tournament for him. It was a step toward proving himself and achieving his dream of becoming Hokage. Later that day, Naruto was in the locker room, preparing for his match. His hands trembled slightly as he fastened his headband, a familiar sense of nervousness creeping in. He knew that Gaara wasn't like the others. His presence was unsettling, and the weight of his past, the hatred that had shaped him, made Gaara a dangerous adversary. But Naruto couldn't afford to let fear dictate his actions. "You've got this, Naruto," he whispered to himself, clenching his fists. The words didn't fully ease his nerves, but they helped him refocus. As he stepped out onto the field, the crowd's cheers washed over him, and he found himself locking eyes with Gaara, who stood motionless on the other side. Gaara's expression was unreadable, but there was an intensity in his gaze that sent a shiver down Naruto's spine. He didn't look like the kind of person to underestimate anyone, and Naruto knew that he would need to bring his A game. The proctor raised his hand, signaling the start of the match. "Begin," he shouted. Immediately, Gaara's sand stirred, swirling around him in a protective barrier, and Naruto could see the danger in it. Gaara's sand wasn't just defensive. It could strike with pinpoint accuracy, and it had an almost sentient quality to it. Naruto had to think fast. He formed a series of hand signs, gathering chakra for his first move. But before he could unleash his attack, Gaara's sand shot forward, moving with lightning speed. Naruto barely managed to dodge to the side as the sand scraped across the ground where he had been standing a moment ago. He cursed under his breath and sprang into action, summoning several shadow clones to divert Gaara's attention. The clones rushed forward, attempting to overwhelm Gaara with sheer numbers. But Gaara's sand responded with even greater speed, slicing through the clones with ease. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the clones dissipate, realizing that he would need to be more strategic. "Don't underestimate me, Gaara," Naruto yelled, his voice full of defiance. He could feel the Ninetales chakra stirring inside him, and he knew he could rely on it if things got too dire. But he also wanted to prove that he could win without solely relying on the beast within him. He focused, using his knowledge of wind-style techniques to create a series of gusts strong enough to push back Gaara's sand. The wind sliced through the arena, kicking up dirt and debris, but Gaara's sand adapted, swirling around him with an eerie precision. Naruto's mind raced. He knew he had to break Gaara's defense to land a hit. But the more he attacked, the more he realized that Gaara was no ordinary opponent. His sand was like an extension of his body, flowing seamlessly with his will. It was relentless, moving with a cold, calculating efficiency. Just when Naruto thought he couldn't keep up, he felt a surge of chakra from deep within. The Ninetales chakra swelled, giving him the strength and speed he needed. But instead of letting it overwhelm him, he focused, trying to harness it without losing control. He used his speed to get up close to Gaara, where the sand was less effective. Gaara's eyes narrowed as he sensed the shift in Naruto's strategy. With a swift motion, he extended his sand outward in an attempt to encase Naruto. But Naruto was faster. With a burst of chakra, he disappeared in a blur, reappearing behind Gaara in an instant. He quickly performed the hand signs for his most powerful jutsu, Rasengan. Naruto shouted as he formed the swirling ball of chakra in his hand, launching it directly at Gaara. Gaara's sand acted quickly, but Naruto's Rasengan hit with full force, causing a massive explosion of dust and debris. For a moment, The arena was shrouded in a thick cloud, and the crowd fell silent, waiting for the dust to settle. When the dust cleared, Gaara stood, his sand shielding him from the brunt of the attack. But the force of the Rasengan had created a deep crater in the ground. Gaara's expression remained unchanged, but there was a slight shift in his posture, a hint of respect in his eyes. Naruto panted, his body drenched in sweat. The Rasengan had taken a lot out of him, and Gaara wasn't going down easily. But Naruto wasn't about to give up. He couldn't. This match was more than just a battle. It was a test of his strength, his will, and his resolve. "You're stronger than I thought, Naruto," Gaara said, his voice as cold as ever. "But you'll have to do better than that." Naruto smirked, a fire lighting up in his eyes. "I'm just getting started," he yelled. The battle was far from over, and Naruto knew he had to keep pushing himself if he wanted to come out on top. The fight against Gaara was more than just a physical battle. It was a test of his determination, his spirit, and his desire to protect those he loved. And he would never back down. Naruto's determination burned brighter as he stared down Gaara, who stood there silently, his sand swirling around him in a protective cocoon. The arena was tense, with the audience holding their breath, anticipating the next move from both fighters. Naruto could feel his body aching from the Rasengan, but he refused to show weakness. He gritted his teeth, ready to push himself even further. Gaara's gaze remained cold, almost calculating, as he raised his hand, causing the sand around him to shift and ripple. "You are persistent," he remarked, his voice chillingly calm. "But persistence alone won't defeat me." Naruto clenched his fists, his eyes never leaving Gaara. The wind picked up, swirling around him, and for a moment, he could feel the familiar sensation of his own chakra mixing with the wind, enhancing his abilities. He was more than just his jutsu. He was the embodiment of the will of fire, the spirit of never giving up. "I won't give up," Naruto declared with conviction, stepping forward. He summoned a fresh batch of shadow clones, creating an army of them to surround Gaara. Each clone was ready to strike, but Gaara was not fazed. He let out a low chuckle, his sand rising to meet the clones in a swift, graceful motion. Naruto's clones lunged forward, launching attacks from every angle, but Gaara's sand was as quick as ever, effortlessly neutralizing them one by one. The sand was alive, like an extension of Gaara's will, and Naruto couldn't help but marvel at how much control his opponent had over it. As his clones fell, Naruto realized that his usual strategy of overwhelming with numbers wasn't going to work here. Gaara's defense was too strong, too precise. But that didn't mean he was out of ideas. With a sudden burst of speed, Naruto broke through the sand's defenses, leaping into the air and launching himself toward Gaara, his Rasengan already forming in his palm. Gaara's eyes widened slightly in response, but he was quick to react. The sand surged up, moving to block Naruto's path, but this time, Naruto was faster. He dipped beneath the rising sand, using his enhanced speed to close the distance between them. Just as Gaara's sand was about to engulf him, Naruto unleashed his Rasengan, sending it crashing into the ground in front of Gaara with explosive force. The blast sent a shockwave through the arena, and for a moment, the entire stadium seemed to shake with the power of the impact. Dust filled the air, blurring the scene from view. The audience gasped, unsure of what had happened. When the smoke cleared, Gaara stood there, his sand swirling frantically around him as if trying to shield him from the attack. For a brief second, Gaara hesitated. The force of Naruto's Rasengan had made him stumble, his sand trembling as it struggled to maintain control. It was the first time Naruto had seen Gaara flinch. That small moment of doubt gave Naruto the opening he needed. "Now!" Naruto roared, his body surging with chakra. He pushed forward, his Rasengan still spinning in his hand. The energy was building up within him, and he could feel the Nine-Tails chakra mixing with his own, amplifying his power. Gaara attempted to launch his sand at Naruto, but it was slow, as if the sand itself was responding to the uncertainty in its master. Naruto's Rasengan collided with Gaara's sand shield, the force of the impact sending a shockwave through the air once again. For a brief moment, there was silence. The dust slowly cleared, revealing Gaara standing amidst a small crater, his sand finally giving way. Naruto, exhausted but not defeated, stood tall, his gaze unwavering. He had done it. He had broken through Gaara's defense. But Gaara wasn't done. He gritted his teeth, his face hardening as his sand rose again, but this time with a more dangerous edge. Gaara was not the kind of person to admit defeat easily, and Naruto knew this match was far from over. You're stronger than I thought, Naruto, Gaara said, his voice quieter, tinged with something like respect. But I won't lose. With that, Gaara's sand shot out in all directions, rapidly surrounding him in a formidable defense. His chakra flared as he began preparing his most devastating attack. Naruto's heart raced as he watched Gaara's movements. This was the moment that would determine everything. He knew that if he didn't act fast, he might be overwhelmed by Gaara's power. Naruto clenched his fist. I won't lose either. He summoned every last bit of his chakra, his body burning with energy. With a yell, he shot forward once more, leaping high into the air as Gaara's sand whipped around him like a storm. Time seemed to slow as the two clashed once again, the roar of their jutsu shaking the arena and leaving the spectators breathless. Gaara's sand clashed with Naruto's Rasengan, and for a brief moment, it felt like the world had come to a standstill, the outcome hanging in the balance. In that moment, Naruto felt his resolve harden. This was his fight, and he would not back down. The sand, the wind, the fury, everything seemed to disappear in that instant. It was just Naruto and Gaara, their wills clashing in a battle for supremacy. The winner would be decided soon. The air was thick with tension as the two combatants locked eyes. Gaara's sand raged around him like a protective force, while Naruto stood firm, determined, his chakra boiling over. The entire stadium seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for the final outcome of this intense struggle. Naruto's hands tightened around the Rasengan, the swirling ball of chakra glowing brighter with each passing second. He could feel the power of the nine tails surging through him, his body almost vibrating from the energy coursing through his veins. He didn't just have his own strength now. He had the strength of the entire village behind him, the trust of his friends, and the belief that he could protect them all. With a fierce yell, Naruto launched himself forward, pushing through the storm of sand. Gaara's eyes widened as Naruto closed the gap between them, his Rasengan colliding with the sand wall Gaara had raised in defense. The impact was deafening, and the force of the blast shattered the sand barrier in an instant. The energy from the Rasengan surged forward, crashing into Gaara and sending him flying back with incredible force. Gaara's sand scrambled desperately to catch him, but the sheer power of Naruto's attack was too much to overcome. The sand wasn't fast enough this time, and Gaara slammed into the arena floor, his body skidding across the ground before finally coming to a halt. The arena was silent, the dust settling as everyone waited for Gaara to move. It felt like an eternity before anything happened. Then, slowly, Gaara began to rise, his expression hard and unreadable. His clothes were torn, and his body was bruised from the impact, but he wasn't finished yet. His chakra flared again, the sand around him swirling fiercely in an unpredictable storm. Naruto stood tall, his body aching from the battle, but his spirit unbroken. He wasn't going to stop until the fight was over. This wasn't just about victory. It was about proving that he could be the strongest, that he could protect everyone who mattered to him. This was his moment. Gaara's voice cut through the silence. You are stronger than I ever expected, but you still haven't won. His eyes were cold, but there was something else there, a flicker of respect. I won't let you defeat me so easily. Naruto took a deep breath. He could feel his body tiring, the constant exertion taking its toll, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Not after everything he had fought for. He stepped forward, his gaze never leaving Gaara, ready to face whatever came next. Gaara raised his hand, and the sand reacted immediately, shifting around him like a living thing. The arena was soon filled with a whirlwind of sand, the air thick with the sound of it moving. I will end this now. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest as he rushed forward, moving with all the speed he could muster. Gaara's sand shot toward him like a barrage of arrows, but Naruto dodged with lightning reflexes, the power of his training and the nine-tails chakra guiding him. He jumped and twisted, his body moving with the grace of a shinobi who had faced countless battles and emerged victorious every time. But Gaara wasn't about to make it easy. The sand seemed to have a mind of its own, shifting and changing its form as it pursued Naruto. The desert storm around Gaara intensified, and for a moment, it seemed as though nothing could break through his defense. Gaara's power was relentless, but Naruto wasn't afraid. He couldn't afford to be. This was the culmination of everything he had learned, every battle he had fought, and every person who had believed in him. He wasn't just fighting Gaara. He was fighting for everything he stood for. Naruto launched himself forward once again, his body surging with energy. He knew this was his last chance. Gaara's sand was fast, but Naruto was faster. He closed the gap with incredible speed, his Rasengan growing once again, spinning with all the chakra he could muster. Gaara's sand surged toward him, but Naruto was already there. He moved with such force and speed that even the sand couldn't keep up. The Rasengan collided with Gaara's defenses, and the impact sent a shockwave through the entire arena, shaking the ground beneath them. This time, Gaara couldn't hold his ground. The sand shattered under the force of the attack, and Gaara was sent flying backward, crashing into the arena walls with an explosion of dust and debris. The audience watched in awe as Gaara lay there, unconscious but still breathing, defeated. Naruto stood over him, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his face. He had done it. He had defeated Gaara, but it wasn't just about the fight. It was about everything that had led to this moment. His training, his determination, and his unshakable belief in himself. As the dust settled and the audience erupted into cheers, Naruto took a moment to catch his breath, looking down at the sand that surrounded him. It wasn't just the end of a fight. It was the beginning of something more. He had proven to himself, and to everyone else, that no matter the odds, he would always find a way to win. The crowd's cheers grew louder, and Naruto raised his fist into the air, a victorious smile spreading across his face. This battle was over, but the journey was far from done. He still had much to learn, many more challenges to face, and many more people to protect. But for now, Naruto had earned his victory, and nothing could take that away from him. The path ahead was uncertain, but Naruto was ready for whatever came next. He had already faced impossible odds and come out on top. Now, with the battle against Gaara behind him, the world awaited his next step, and Naruto Uzumaki was ready to take it. The cheers from the crowd echoed throughout the stadium, a sound that Naruto had longed to hear. But even as he basked in the overwhelming joy of victory, a deep sense of reflection settled in his heart. The battle with Gaara had been intense, a true test of his growth as a ninja, but it had also reminded him of the deeper path that lay ahead. Naruto turned his gaze toward the horizon, the wind rustling his hair. The village had always been his home, but now he could feel the weight of the responsibility that came with it. He wasn't just fighting for his own future anymore. He was fighting for the future of everyone in the Hidden Leaf, for every person who had supported him along the way. Naruto! Sakura's voice cut through the noise as she rushed to his side, a look of relief on her face. She'd been watching the fight from the stands, her heart in her throat the entire time. You did it. Yeah, Naruto said, his smile broadening. I did. But it wasn't just me. I couldn't have done it without all of you. He turned to look at Sasuke, who had been silently observing from the sidelines. The Uchiha's expression was unreadable, but Naruto knew Sasuke understood. They had both come a long way since their first days as teammates. Sasuke gave a small nod, acknowledging Naruto's words. It wasn't much, but for Naruto, it was enough. With Gaara's defeat, the Sand Village would surely have to reassess its stance. Naruto couldn't help but wonder about the future of his relationship with Gaara. They had been adversaries, but in some ways, they were similar, both struggling with their pasts and the weight of their respective powers. Gaara had been an enigma, but Naruto could feel that something had shifted within him after their battle. They weren't enemies anymore. They were fellow shinobi, each with their own burdens to carry. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by a loud voice from the arena's entrance. Well done, Naruto. It was the voice of Tsunade, the Hokage. She had been watching from the Hokage's office, and her voice carried the authority that Naruto had come to respect. "You've proven yourself once again." Naruto turned to see Tsunade walking toward him, a rare smile on her face. Behind her was Jiraiya, who had been watching the fight from a distance, though his smile was more playful. "You were incredible out there, Naruto. I knew you had it in you." Naruto's face lit up with pride, but there was a part of him that still felt uneasy. He had won, yes, but there would always be more challenges ahead. More battles to face, more enemies to defeat, and, perhaps most daunting of all, more truths to uncover about the world around him. "You're right," Tsunade said, as if reading his thoughts. "The battle against Gaara is over, but the war is far from finished. There are still threats out there, threats that none of us can face alone. You'll need to keep growing, Naruto, and you'll need to keep your allies close." Naruto nodded, his expression serious. "I will. I won't let anyone down." Sakura placed a hand on his shoulder, a reassuring gesture. "We're all in this together. We've always been, and we always will be." Naruto smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that made him realize just how much his friends meant to him. No matter how tough the road ahead might be, he knew he wouldn't have to walk it alone. He had the support of the village, the people who cared about him, and the unwavering belief that, no matter what, he would find a way to succeed. But even as Naruto stood there, surrounded by his friends and mentors, he couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was looming on the horizon. The world was shifting, and with it, the very nature of shinobi battles. He had felt it during his fight with Gaara, the changing tides of destiny. New powers were awakening, old conflicts were resurfacing, and Naruto was at the center of it all. He wasn't just a pawn in the game anymore. He was becoming a player. And with that realization came the responsibility to make choices that would shape not just his future, but the future of the entire shinobi world. Would he be able to protect those he cared about? Could he stop the endless cycle of war and pain that had plagued his world for so long? The journey ahead was uncertain, and Naruto didn't have all the answers. But one thing was clear. He was ready. Ready to face whatever came next. Ready to become the man he was always meant to be. With a final look at his friends, Naruto turned toward the horizon once again. The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow across the village. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Naruto knew one thing for sure. He would never give up. The story of Naruto Uzumaki was just beginning. Naruto stood tall, his eyes narrowing as he looked out over the village. The sunset's glow was like a symbol of new beginnings, but deep down, he knew there was more to his path than just the battles he had fought so far. The world, with all its shifting dynamics and growing tensions, wasn't simply going to let him rest. And as the Hokage, there would be even more responsibility resting on his shoulders. As he walked through the village, he could feel the weight of the people's eyes on him, those who admired him, those who feared him, and those who didn't fully understand him. To them, he was their hero, their Hokage, the symbol of their hope. But he was still human, still that boy who had been an outsider, still struggling with his own doubts and questions about what it all meant. Being the Hokage wasn't just about strength or power. It was about wisdom, compassion, and understanding. Naruto made his way to the Hokage's office, the familiar wooden door welcoming him back. Stepping inside, he found a few of the village's elders gathered around, speaking in hushed tones. Tsunade was there as well, her usual stern expression softened by the knowledge that Naruto had come a long way, but the concerns of the village never rested. "Naruto," Tsunade said, motioning for him to sit. "There are some important matters we need to discuss. The world is changing, and the balance of power is shifting. Even though we've managed to keep the peace for now, there's always the threat of new dangers on the horizon." Naruto took a seat, his eyes steady. He could feel the weight of Tsunade's words. She was right. There was so much more to this role than he'd initially realized. "What's the situation?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. One of the elder council members spoke up, a serious look in their eyes. "We've been monitoring the other villages closely. Some of the smaller ones have begun to form alliances, possibly in an attempt to disrupt the existing balance. The power vacuum left by the fall of the Akatsuki could invite new factions to rise." Naruto leaned forward, his hand tightening into a fist. He didn't need to be told that things were about to get even more complicated. His thoughts briefly wandered back to Gaara, to the sand that had once been his enemy. Was it possible that Gaara might try to challenge him now, with his own growing power and influence? What if the sand's peace was a facade? He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Should we prepare for another war? Naruto asked, though he didn't want to admit it. His voice carried a heavy burden. He was the Hokage now, the one who had to ensure his people's safety, but he couldn't help feeling the weight of a warlord's responsibility. Tsunade's gaze softened, but there was no hesitation in her voice. We must always be prepared. The world of shinobi is filled with conflict and ambition. We can't stop progress, but we can steer it in the right direction. Naruto nodded, understanding the deeper meaning of her words. As much as he wished things could stay peaceful, he knew that wasn't the reality of the world he lived in. Still, he couldn't afford to give up hope. There had to be a way to break the cycle. He stood up, determination returning to his face. Then let's prepare. I won't let anyone threaten this village. And I'll protect everyone, no matter what. Tsunade smiled, proud of him. That's the spirit, Naruto. But remember, you don't have to face everything alone. You have allies, and we'll face whatever comes together. Naruto felt a warmth in his chest. The village, his friends, the people who believed in him. They were his strength. And together, they could weather any storm. But even as he made his resolve, a distant part of him felt that the true challenges were still ahead. The darkness was not finished yet. He knew that there were forces out there, powerful and mysterious, that would eventually come knocking at the door. Forces that couldn't be handled with just ninja techniques or strength. And as the Hokage, he would need to grow beyond his limits to ensure his village's survival. All right, Naruto said, his voice steady as he turned to leave. I'll get to work. We've got a lot to do, and I won't waste any time. Tsunade nodded, watching him leave the room. Naruto was no longer the naive boy he had been when he first became a shinobi. He had grown, both in strength and in spirit. But with growth came greater burdens, and Tsunade knew that he would need every bit of wisdom he had learned to face the future. As Naruto stepped back outside, the village's lights twinkled in the evening haze, casting a peaceful glow over the land. But there was a storm on the horizon, one he couldn't yet see. He didn't know what awaited him, but he would be ready. And so, the Hokage's journey continued. But for now, Naruto had no choice but to step forward into the future, with the hopes of everyone who believed in him. Naruto spent the following days diving headfirst into his responsibilities as Hokage. He was no longer just a member of Team 7 or a rogue ninja fighting for his place. He was the leader of the entire Hidden Leaf Village, and every decision he made affected the lives of the people who depended on him. It was a different weight than the one he had borne during the Fourth Great Ninja War. Back then, the enemy was clear, and the fight had a sense of purpose and urgency. But now, in times of peace, the challenge was maintaining that peace and ensuring that no one took it for granted. He spent hours in meetings with the elders, listening to their concerns about the neighboring villages and the changes in the shinobi world. There were rumors about a new organization rising, a group that had learned how to exploit the gaps left by the fall of the Akatsuki and the disbandment of the other major threats. These new factions were not bound by the same rules or morals as the old ones. They operated in the shadows, and their motives were unclear. Naruto couldn't help but feel uneasy. He had never been one to sit behind a desk and make decisions from a distance. He had always preferred to be in the thick of things, charging headfirst into danger to protect his friends and his village. But now, his role was different. The village looked to him not only for protection, but also for guidance. One afternoon, as Naruto was walking through the village, he saw some of the younger shinobi practicing. He smiled as he watched them, remembering his own days as a student, eager to learn and grow. He spotted Konohamaru, who was leading a group of kids through some basic training. The younger shinobi had grown so much since Naruto had first seen him. There was a fire in Konohamaru's eyes, the same fire that had once burned in his own heart. "Konohamaru," Naruto called out, walking over to him. "Naruto-sensei." Konohamaru grinned, clearly happy to see him. "What's up?" I was just passing by and thought I'd see how the next generation is doing, Naruto said, giving him a thumbs up. You're doing a great job. Konohamaru laughed, scratching the back of his head. Well, I have you to thank for that, Naruto-sensei. You've been an inspiration to all of us. Naruto chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Don't go giving me too much credit. I was just a troublemaker back then. You guys are the ones who are really making a difference now. As they spoke, Naruto couldn't help but notice the calm that had settled over the village. It was peaceful, yes, but there was something else in the air. An uneasy sense of stillness, like the calm before a storm. Even the younger shinobi seemed to sense it. The excitement of training, the joy of learning new techniques, it all felt a little too quiet. Suddenly, a distant voice interrupted his thoughts. Naruto. He turned to see Sasuke approaching, his familiar cloak flowing in the wind. Sasuke's presence had always been a reminder of the past, of their battles together, their struggles, and ultimately, their friendship. The bond they shared was unspoken, but it was always there, unshakable. Sasuke, Naruto greeted with a smile. What's going on? Anything new? Sasuke's expression was serious, as usual. I've been hearing things. Rumors, whispers of a new faction forming. They're not like anything we've faced before. Naruto's smile faded. Another group? Huh? What do we know about them? Sasuke hesitated, his eyes scanning the village as if searching for something. They're not just any rogue group. They've got connections, resources, and something more. I've been tracking them, but so far, it's hard to pin down exactly what they want. All I know is that they're making their move. Naruto's mind began to race. A new threat, something different from what they had faced in the past. He couldn't afford to ignore it. Not with everything at stake. We need to gather information, Naruto said, his voice growing firm. I'll call a meeting with the elders and the other villages. If this group is serious, we'll have to take action. Sasuke nodded, his eyes narrowing. I'll help, but we'll need more than just information. We'll need to be ready for anything. Naruto clenched his fist, his resolve hardening. I won't let anyone threaten this village. Not again. We've fought too hard for this peace. As Sasuke turned to leave, Naruto stood there for a moment, looking out over the village. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the rooftops. It was a peaceful sight, but he couldn't shake the feeling that danger was just around the corner. He had worked so hard to bring peace to the world, but peace was fragile. It could be lost in an instant, and he couldn't let that happen. Stay strong, everyone, Naruto muttered under his breath. The real test is about to begin. Naruto spent the following week preparing for what was coming. He held meetings with the other village leaders, making sure that they were all aware of the potential new threat. He couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this group, whatever they were, could bring more destruction than any enemy he had ever faced. As the days passed, reports came in from scouts, each one confirming his worst fears. The group was indeed gaining strength and influence, and their reach extended far beyond just one village. They were recruiting rogue ninjas, and they had ties with unsavory elements in the hidden corners of the world. The more he learned about them, the more he realized that this wasn't just another group looking for power. They had a purpose. They're not just after control, Sasuke remarked during one of their discussions. They're after something much bigger. This group is preparing for something. Something that could change the entire shinobi world. Naruto stood at the edge of the Hokage's office, looking out at the village below. His mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle that was unfolding before him. He'd faced so many battles, but none like this. He wasn't just fighting for his own survival anymore. He was fighting for the future of the entire world. Do you think we can take them down before they make their move? Naruto asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Sasuke didn't respond immediately. He walked over to the window and stood beside him, his gaze scanning the horizon. After a long silence, Sasuke spoke. It's not about whether we can take them down, Naruto. It's about whether we're ready for what comes next. These people aren't like the enemies we've faced before. They're planning something that could shake the very foundation of our world. Naruto clenched his fists, determination rising in his chest. He'd always been one to charge into a fight headfirst, but now he had to think more carefully. His village, his people, They depended on him, and he wasn't going to let them down. "We'll be ready," he said firmly. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect everyone." Over the next few days, Naruto, Sasuke, and the rest of their allies worked tirelessly to prepare for the impending conflict. They trained, strategized, and gathered as much information as they could. But even with all their preparation, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The more he learned, the more he realized that this wasn't just a war. It was a battle for the very soul of the shinobi world. It was clear that this new group was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. They weren't just out for revenge or power. They were after something far more dangerous. And the longer Naruto waited, the more he feared that it would be too late to stop them. One night, as he sat in his office, poring over reports, a sudden knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, looking up from his desk. The door opened, and a familiar face stepped inside. It was Sakura. "Naruto," she said, her voice soft but serious. "I've been hearing more about this group. They've been making moves, and I think we need to step up our efforts." Naruto nodded, setting the reports aside. "I know, Sakura. We're preparing for whatever comes next, but there's something about this group that feels different. They're more organized, more ruthless, and I think they've been planning this for a long time." Sakura walked over to the desk, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think they could have inside help? Someone from within the village?" Naruto frowned at the thought. It was a possibility he had been considering. "It's possible. I've been watching for any signs of betrayal, but we can't afford to be complacent. We need to stay vigilant." Sakura nodded, determination in her eyes. "We'll keep an eye out, and we'll make sure the village is ready for whatever comes next." Naruto gave a small smile, grateful for her support. "Thanks, Sakura. I couldn't do this without you." As she left, Naruto turned back to the reports, his mind racing with possibilities. There was no way to predict what would happen next, but one thing was certain. He wouldn't stop fighting until he had protected everyone he loved. The tension in the air was palpable. It wasn't just a war for the village anymore. It was a battle for the very future of the shinobi world. And as Naruto prepared for the coming storm, he knew that it was a battle unlike any other he had ever fought before. The war was coming, and this time, it wasn't just about winning. It was about ensuring that peace could survive in a world where enemies were no longer so easily defined. The days that followed were tense. The Hidden Leaf Village was on high alert, and everyone, civilians, ninjas, allies, was preparing for what was to come. Training sessions were intensified, strategies were being refined, and secret meetings were held behind closed doors. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura spent countless hours devising plans, talking to other villages, and strengthening alliances. Everyone knew that this new enemy wasn't like anything they'd ever faced before. Naruto had always been a fighter at heart, someone who'd charge into battle with unwavering determination. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had the support of his friends, his comrades, and the village that he'd sworn to protect. But the threat they were facing wasn't one that could be defeated with strength alone. It was more insidious, more dangerous. The unknown aspect of it gnawed at him, leaving him with an uneasy feeling that he couldn't quite shake. Late one night, after everyone had gone to bed, Naruto stood alone on the Hokage's rooftop, staring up at the star-filled sky. The soft wind blew against his face, but his thoughts were heavier than the breeze. "Why does it feel like I'm missing something?" he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. "I've faced so much, but this feels different." Just then, a figure appeared beside him. It was Sasuke, looking as stoic as ever. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, observing Naruto's troubled expression. "I know what you're thinking," Sasuke said, his voice low. "This isn't just any fight. And you're right, something's off. This enemy, they've been planning for a long time. But we'll figure it out, Naruto. We always do." Naruto turned to look at him, offering a tired smile. "I know, Sasuke. But this time, I feel like we're not just fighting for the village. It's more than that. The entire shinobi world could change because of this." Sasuke nodded. "The whole world is shifting. And whether we like it or not, we have a responsibility to keep it from falling apart." There was a long silence as both of them stared out into the horizon, the weight of their responsibilities pressing down on them. Then, with a sharp breath, Naruto broke the silence. Do you think we can stop them, Sasuke? What if we fail? What if this is one battle we can't win? Sasuke glanced at him, a flicker of something, doubt, perhaps, passing through his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had come. We've been through worse. But if we fail, then we fail together. No matter what happens, we'll give everything we have. That's all we can do. Naruto felt the weight of those words. It wasn't about winning every fight. It was about fighting with everything they had. If this enemy was as powerful as they feared, they would need every bit of strength, skill, and strategy at their disposal. But they wouldn't fight alone. We'll need the help of everyone, Naruto said softly, his resolve solidifying. The villages, the allies, even the ones who aren't our friends. If we want to protect what we've built, we need to stand together. Sasuke agreed, his gaze hardening with determination. Then we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. The next morning, Naruto called for a summit with the leaders of the other villages. The time for secrecy and isolation was over. The threat posed by this unknown group was too great to ignore any longer. If they wanted to ensure the survival of the shinobi world, they would have to unite, to fight as one. The summit was tense. The village leaders had their doubts and their own concerns, but Naruto and the others made their case. They explained what they knew of the group and the threat they posed, and slowly, the other leaders began to understand. A sense of urgency took over the room as the gravity of the situation settled in. If they didn't act now, they might never get the chance. I've never trusted the other villages, the Raikage admitted, his voice gravelly. But you've convinced me. If this group is as dangerous as you say, then we need to put aside our differences and fight together. The Mizukage, who had been silent until now, nodded in agreement. We've all lost too much in the past. If there's even the slightest chance we can stop this threat, we'll do what we can. The Tsuchikage and the Kazekage followed suit, each offering their support in their own way. Even the cautious Kage of the Hidden Grass Village added their voice to the agreement. In that moment, something shifted. For the first time in years, the shinobi world seemed united. We will fight together, Naruto said, his voice steady and unwavering. For the future of the world. For our people. And for the peace we've worked so hard to build. And so, the war began. But this time, it wasn't just the Hidden Leaf Village that was fighting. The entire shinobi world had united under one banner, and they were ready to face whatever came next. As the first wave of enemies appeared on the horizon, Naruto felt a fire ignite within him. The battle ahead would be the hardest they had ever fought, but they were ready. And together, they would make sure that peace would prevail, no matter what the cost. The war had begun, and Naruto Uzumaki, the 7th Hokage, would fight until the very end. The next few days were filled with rapid preparations. Each village began mobilizing their forces, training together, and sharpening their skills. Naruto and Sasuke worked relentlessly, organizing their strategies, coordinating with the other leaders, and keeping in constant communication with each of their allies. But as the days passed, Naruto couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. He wasn't sure whether it was the pressure of the upcoming war or the nagging sense that the enemy was always one step ahead, but it gnawed at him constantly. One evening, after a long day of strategy meetings and discussions, Naruto found himself once again on the Hokage's rooftop. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was Sakura, her arms crossed over her chest as she gazed out into the village. "You look troubled," Sakura said, her voice soft, though there was a certain steel in her tone. Naruto chuckled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You can tell, huh?" "Of course," she replied with a small smile. "You've always been easy to read. What's going on in that head of yours?" Naruto stared out into the distance, his gaze distant and far away. I feel like we're not ready. I know we've trained for this, and everyone's giving their best, but I still feel like there's something we're missing." Sakura stood beside him, her expression growing more serious. "You're worried about the enemy, aren't you? You think they have something we don't know about yet?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah, it's like they've been planning this for a long time. We're not just fighting for our village. We're fighting for the whole shinobi world, and if we lose, everything we fought for, everything we've built, could be destroyed. I can't let that happen. Sakura placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. We won't lose, Naruto. Not if we stick together. You've always believed in people, in your comrades. We have to trust that belief now more than ever. Naruto turned to face her, his eyes filled with a mixture of doubt and determination. I do trust them, all of them, but I don't know if that's enough this time. Sakura's smile was small, but it was filled with conviction. That's why we fight together. You're not alone in this, Naruto. We all have your back. We always have. The words sank deep into Naruto's heart, grounding him in the reality that he didn't have to carry the weight of the world alone. The friendships, the bonds, the village, it all meant something. They were stronger together, and they would face whatever came at them side by side. The next day, the final preparations were underway. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura stood together at the front of the assembled forces, ready to lead the charge. The soldiers were lined up, their faces set with determination, their hearts steeled for the fight ahead. The other Kage were also present, standing side by side with their respective forces. Naruto's heart beat faster as he surveyed the crowd. Every ninja, every ally, every friend. This was his family, his home. He would fight for them, no matter what. Let's make sure we win this, Naruto said, his voice booming across the battlefield. Sasuke and Sakura nodded, both of them brimming with their own sense of purpose. For the future, Sasuke said quietly, his sharingan gleaming in the sunlight. For the world we want to protect, Sakura added, her fists clenched. And then, they charged. The battle was brutal. The enemy, though mysterious and unknown, was formidable. The shinobi world had never faced a threat like this. Their enemies seemed to be able to anticipate every move, and their attacks were relentless. It was unlike anything Naruto had seen before. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, the shinobi didn't falter. Every strike, every defense, every jutsu was backed by years of training, sacrifice, and the knowledge that they couldn't afford to lose. Naruto fought with everything he had, using every bit of power he could muster, tapping into his new abilities with the byakugan and sharingan. His reflexes were sharper, his perception heightened, and his chakra control more precise than ever before. But it wasn't enough. The enemy's leader, a dark and imposing figure, seemed to know exactly how to counter every move Naruto made. You're stronger than I anticipated, the enemy leader said, his voice cold and measured. But you still haven't realized your true potential. Naruto's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The enemy smirked, his eyes glowing with a dark intensity. You have powers that you're not fully utilizing. But I'll help you, whether you want it or not. The ground beneath Naruto's feet trembled as the enemy leader unleashed a massive wave of energy, sending Naruto and his comrades flying back. As they regrouped, Sasuke's eyes met Naruto's, a silent understanding passing between them. We can't let them get away with this, Naruto said, his voice firm. Let's show them what we're really made of. The war was far from over. But Naruto knew one thing for certain. He wasn't alone in this fight. And together, they would find a way to overcome this enemy, no matter the cost. The battle raged on for hours, the sheer scale of it unlike anything the shinobi world had ever seen. Every corner of the battlefield was filled with clashing jutsu, explosive bursts of chakra, and the sounds of war that echoed across the land. But even amidst the chaos, Naruto's determination burned brighter than ever. He could feel the weight of his power, his eyes scanning the battlefield with the byakugan and sharingan working in unison. His enemies were numerous, but what struck him was the sheer precision and skill they possessed. Their leader was a force unlike anything Naruto had ever encountered. His chakra control was near perfect, his strategies were calculated, and it seemed like he knew every move Naruto would make before he made it. Damn it, Naruto muttered, dodging an incoming barrage of jutsu, his byakugan allowing him to see the attack moments before it reached him. Who are these guys? Sasuke, who had been fighting beside him, shot a glance in his direction. They're unlike any shinobi we've fought before. They're organized. They've been preparing for this. Tell me about it. Naruto grunted. launching a Rasengan at one of the enemy forces. But we've got something they don't. Unity. Sakura appeared beside him, delivering a punch that sent an enemy flying. We'll take them down one by one. Naruto's heart swelled at the sight of his comrades. Despite everything, they still stood firm together, and that gave him strength. The connection they shared was undeniable, and it was the one thing the enemy couldn't account for. But their enemies were relentless. No matter how many they took down, more kept appearing, and the leader's presence was felt more and more as time went on. Is it just me, or are they getting stronger? Sakura asked, gritting her teeth as she blocked another attack. Naruto looked around, his sharingan spinning in his eyes as he analyzed the situation. They are? And I think their leader's feeding them power. He's drawing energy from somewhere. We need to stop him, Sasuke said, his voice laced with urgency. But he's untouchable. Every time we get close, he anticipates our moves. We can't give up, Naruto said, his voice sharp. We've been through worse, and we'll get through this too. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt a surge of chakra from his comrades. Their will, their belief in each other. It was resonating, amplifying with every passing moment. It was then that Naruto realized something. Wait a minute, he whispered to himself. Maybe that's the key. The enemy leader's power came from isolation, from fear, from breaking down the bonds between people. Naruto understood now that the only way to beat him was to use the very thing he was trying to destroy, the bond between comrades. He turned to Sasuke and Sakura. We need to sync up. Focus on your chakra. Channel everything into one attack. All of us, together. Sasuke gave him a knowing nod. Sakura didn't hesitate either. They understood what Naruto was asking of them. This battle wasn't about brute strength or raw power. It was about unity. As they focused, their chakra began to intertwine, growing stronger with each passing moment. Naruto could feel his power increase, the energy flowing through him as he drew on the bond he shared with his comrades. The enemy leader, sensing the change, turned his attention to them, his cold eyes narrowing. You think your unity can defeat me? You're nothing but ants beneath my feet. Naruto's eyes flared with intensity. We're more than ants. We're a family. In that instant, their combined chakra reached its peak. Naruto felt the power of the Rasengan and Chidori blend seamlessly with Sakura's enhanced strength, their individual techniques becoming one unstoppable force. Now, Naruto shouted, and together they launched their attack. The combined energy surged forward, cutting through the enemy's defenses like a hot knife through butter. The shockwave of their jutsu shattered the ground beneath them, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The enemy leader's eyes widened in disbelief as the attack collided with him. The force was overwhelming, tearing through his defenses and forcing him back. His hand shot out, attempting to counterattack, but it was too late. The synchronized attack of the three shinobi had overwhelmed him. The explosion of chakra was blinding, and when the dust finally settled, the enemy leader was gone. His forces began to crumble, their morale shattered by the loss of their leader. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura stood, breathing heavily but unwavering, their bodies tired but their spirits stronger than ever. We did it, Sakura said, her voice filled with relief and exhaustion. Naruto grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. We did it. Together. Sasuke nodded, his usual stoic expression softening slightly. We always do. And so, the shinobi world was saved once again. But this victory wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about something deeper, something Naruto had always believed in but now understood more clearly than ever before. In the end, it was the bonds between them, the unbreakable trust, the unwavering loyalty that had made all the difference. No matter what challenges the future might hold, Naruto knew that with his friends by his side, he could face anything.